All right. Oh, this is Kyle Thompson, and I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Neighborhood Quiz. And what I'm going to be doing in this training video is just going through the pitch that I make to employers who I'm trying to get to use the quiz, either by just giving out a link to the quiz as is, or perhaps in some cases even creating a branded quiz for that employer, so it makes it look like it's more of the employer's quiz than our quiz. In the end, even with the branded quizzes, we get their names and emails, and the report has our name on it. So that is a very good thing if employers are out there doing our selling for us. I'm going to start off, and as I go through the quiz pitch, I'm going to have two examples that I give, like recent examples with clients. And I chose these two examples because they are really good illustrations of how the quiz can overcome some of the negative reasons that people might not choose Salem, Oregon, where we live, as a final destination. And so for the examples, you're going to want to interchange your own examples that illustrate any particular thing or overcomes any weakness in your particular geography. And so just as you start using the quiz, you're going to want to use some different examples that are more local to you. Okay? Why don't we go ahead and get started? So here it is. What I'd like to do today is start off and give you a bit of background of the neighborhood quiz. Why we created it, what it's designed to do, how or why you should care about using it at all. Then I would like to give you two specific examples of how the neighborhood quiz helped local employers land the talent that they were looking to hire. And then we will go over how we might be able to customize the quiz so it becomes more of your quiz rather than our quiz. Okay? And if that sounds like a plan to you, then that is how I will proceed. Okay. So the neighborhood quiz is something that we've been working on for a little over 3 years. And the reason why we put so much time and effort into it is that what we have found is that to most people, the attributes of the neighborhood that a home resides in is of equal importance to the attributes of the home itself. But while it is very easy to find information online about a home that is for sale, it is virtually impossible to find any information online about the neighborhood that home resides in. And this is a really important point, and it gets to the core of why I'm here talking to you about this. In that the internet has changed the way that we live in countless ways. One of those ways is that it has trained us all to want to do research on our own before we buy something. Very few people anymore want the salesman that they first run into to be the sole source of knowledge about anything that they want to buy. And it doesn't matter what it is. This is why Amazon has taken over the retailing world. It's why City Data gets over 3 million hits a month on their website. And it is why Zillow has become a billion-dollar business overnight. Because in all of these cases, these companies allowed people to do research in a way they'd never been able to do before. A way that in the past, they had to rely on a salesman to do for them. And it doesn't matter if that salesman is behind the counter of a retailer selling someone a shirt, or a real estate agent selling someone a house, or a member of the HR team selling someone a job in a new city. We are all the biased salesman. And the neighborhood quiz is simply an extension of what these other companies have already done. It allows people to do research on neighborhoods in a way they've never been able to do before. And it asks a lot of the same kinds of questions that we ask when we first work with somebody. And then they get the report at the very end. And that report does a lot of neat things. Neat things for the person taking the quiz, neat things for local employers, and for the city itself. For starters, it helps people figure out what they even want in a neighborhood. And that's half the battle. I mean, a lot of people, they have a vague idea of what they're looking for at a neighborhood when they start a home search, but for the most part, they haven't thought the matter completely through, for no other reason that they don't even know what they should be thinking about. But that's where the quiz can help them. And because it is so short, just takes a minute or two to take, and because they can see how different answers will not only affect a neighborhood score, but what neighborhoods even show up on the list, that they can take in multiple times and just start to figure out what's important to them. And once they do, they have this great starting point. And if they decide to reach out to us, that is when we typically will make first contact. And we'll ask them a bunch more questions to help narrow down the neighborhood and the home even further. And during that process, we may add some neighborhoods to the list, we may take some neighborhoods off the list. But regardless of how that plays out, their search will have been narrowed by 90%, which reduces the stress and frustration of buying a home by about 90%. But that brings me to the not insignificant question of why you should care about any of this. I mean, I'm sure this is all real interesting information, but what has this got to do with you and what you do on a day-to-day basis? So let me try to explain why you should care deeply about all of this, because the things I've been talking about, they affect you in a very direct way. The most dedicated employees are going to spend no more than 1/3 of their total time in the office. The other 2/3 of their time is going to be spent primarily at home and out and about in the city in which they live. And as such, matters of the home, matters of the city play a huge part in their decision-making tree. I mean, before somebody is going to say yes to a new city, before they're going to say yes to you, they have got to answer for themselves, am I even going to like living in this city? Is my family going to like it? Are my kids going to thrive? And the neighborhood quiz is a powerful recruiting tool because it helps people answer yes to those questions. But not because we just sugarcoat over any negative attributes of the neighborhoods. Quite the opposite is true, actually. We are very pragmatic about the strengths and weaknesses of every neighborhood, and every neighborhood has strengths and weaknesses. But we don't have to gloss over anything because by its very nature, the neighborhood quiz is only showing people neighborhoods that match up well with their preferences. And as a result, they're going to be far more willing to overlook any one particular attribute that to another person is a total deal killer. I mean, take highway access as an example. You know, here in Salem, Oregon, a lot of people who live here have at least one family member who commutes up to Portland for work. And so for them, highway access is critical. I mean, they want to be pulling out of their driveway and 5 minutes later be accelerating up to highway speed. Oh, and a neighborhood that can give them that, huge positive. The very next person doesn't want to be anywhere near the highway. They don't want the traffic, they don't want the noise, they don't want the smell. And so for them, that very same neighborhood, huge negative. So the neighborhood quiz is a powerful recruiting tool, not because it is showing people the best of Salem. It's a powerful recruiting tool because it's showing them the best of Salem for them. And that's different for everybody. And this is not smoke and mirrors. I mean, this is not me up here doing a tap dance about the nirvana of using the neighborhood quiz. I mean, this works. This really works. Let me give you 2 examples show how it can help employers. My first example is a young police officer and his wife and infant. Just moved here to Salem. And when he came up for his interview, suffice to say, he and his wife were not sold on Salem by any stretch of the imagination. Now, as unfair as it is, and becoming more unfair by the day, Salem, Oregon has an absolutely awful reputation online. Awful. I mean, you can get on city data today. I mean, not 10 years ago, not 2 years ago, today, and type, I think I'd like to move to Salem, Oregon. What do people think? And what you will hear back is absolutely toxic. Salem is riddled with crime. They have 3 state prisons and they release all the prisoners into the general population. There's nowhere to eat out in Salem. All they have are fast food chains. The schools in Salem, terrible, some of the worst in the state. I mean, these are things that people have written about our city in the last 60 days. Okay? Now, when you press these people, well, then you find out they haven't lived here for 15 years, and they really have no idea what they're talking about. But they don't offer that information up when they're writing their comments. Okay? So this police officer and his wife were finding a lot of bad stuff online about Salem. But during their research, they also stumbled across the neighborhood quiz. And the results they got from that flew in the face of much of what they've been reading about Salem. I mean, look at all these videos of neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. They look great. Doesn't look like the city is being overrun by crime. Look at all these indie restaurants located all over town with TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence. Doesn't look like there's nowhere to eat out. Look at these school ratings, 8s, 9s, 10s on great schools. Doesn't look like all the schools are awful. And so they reached out to us and said, we like what we see in this quiz report, but it doesn't match up with much of what we're reading about your city. So I'm coming in for this interview. What we'd like you to do is spend some time with us. Drive us around the city. Take us through some of these neighborhoods. Prove the naysayers wrong. Help us see ourselves living and raising a family in Salem. Because right now, we're having trouble seeing it. So he had an early afternoon interview, okay? And so they gave us the morning, okay? 4 hours. 4 hours to help them see themselves living in Salem and undoing any negative impressions they might have about the city of Salem. And that is the single biggest reason why your department needs this quiz, because that is incredibly common. I guarantee you that if somebody is coming in for an interview from out of town, they're either meeting with a real estate agent right before that interview or right after that interview. But they are meeting with them because they have to live somewhere. And when people are talking to a real estate agent, they are going to give them no more than 1 day at the most, which means 7 homes. Because that is the most number of homes that you can walk into in a single day and not have your head explode. Okay? And even that is a bit of a blur. So 7 homes, 7 neighborhoods out of the over 250 that are in the Salem-Keizer area. Okay? We have had thousands of people take this quiz, and I can tell you without a shred of doubt that it is very rare that somebody finds even 10 neighborhoods that are a good match for their preferences. And that is rare that is that many. Usually it's less than half that. And so it's a pretty important day for everybody involved, most especially you, the employer. It has a very low chance of success because if an agent is going in blind with this, they have less than a 4% chance of stumbling into a neighborhood that really matches up with what these people like. And you have absolutely no control over it. Okay? They gave us half that amount of time. But we had their neighborhood quiz results and we'd asked them a few more questions. And so we identified 7 neighborhoods that we thought they'd really like. And oh, did they. They didn't just like them. They loved them. Every single one. Only 3 of them even had a single home for them to walk into. Didn't matter. Okay? They loved the city after we went through all these neighborhoods. After that, we took them downtown to one of our favorite restaurants and then took them a quick tour of the downtown where they could see some of the other neat shops and restaurants and coffee shops and things like that. By the time he left us to go to his interview, it was a done deal. He and his wife were sold on Salem. And the reason why I say that is because that's exactly what they told us. And so then he goes to his interview. And so he walked into that interview and they weren't selling him on Salem. He was selling them on himself because he and his wife wanted to move to Salem. My other example is a couple from Connecticut. And he is a bigwig in the IT world. I mean, so much so that the folks that we know that work for the state tell us that it was a huge coup for the state to land this guy. I mean, they are literally building a brand new department around this guy. And he and his wife were really excited about moving to Salem until she started to do research on our schools. And she just about had a heart attack. On greatschools.org, you can look up an individual school and see its ranking and how they arrived at that ranking in great detail. But you can also look up an entire city and see the average ranking of all the schools, all the public schools in that city. And right now, Salem's average ranking is a 5 out of 10. Okay? You don't even want to know how many families refuse to move to Salem for that reason alone. Don't even look any further. And for reference, the city in Connecticut where they're from, 10 out of 10. Now, it's a totally unfair comparison. I mean, that town is 1/10 the size of Salem, and they speak all English. So it's all white, all English, so one language, not the 47 languages that are spoken in the Salem-Keizer School District. Quite a bit easier to get a 10 out of 10 under those circumstances. But she was really not concerning herself with the minutia of all of that. Because from her perspective, she was saying, look, you want us to pull our 2 girls out of a really great school system, a school that we love, a school that they love, and move them to the other side of the country and put them in a school district that is this bad? Are you out of your mind? That led her to do a bunch more research on Salem, where she found a lot of other negative things, and in a span of 48 hours, she went from being excited to move to Salem to all but demanding her husband rescind his acceptance of the offer. Now, luckily for the state, he really wanted the job. He wanted to come out here. And he had built up enough of a relationship with one of his, soon-to-be not co-workers, that he was able to confide in them as to what's going on. Hey, I got a serious problem at home here. Do you have any suggestions? And so his co-worker, said, well, before you do anything rash, you have to at least talk to Melina over at Thompson Burnham. But here's the thing. His wife had absolutely no interest in doing that. They were already working with a real estate agent, an agent who was doing nothing to alleviate her fears in this regard. And she had no interest in talking to another salesman, another real estate agent who was just going to tell her the exact same thing. Oh, don't worry about the schools, your kids will be fine. When all of her research told her the exact opposite. But she did agree to at least look on our website, where she found the neighborhood quiz. And she took it a bunch of times, like 5 or 6 times. And lo and behold, 4 neighborhoods met their criteria, met all their wants and needs, and the schools were all ranked 8s, 9s, and 10s. 4 out of the over 250 in Salem. And, so she was like, okay, well, maybe I've overreacted a little bit. We should at least go out there and visit like we originally planned, because she didn't even really want to come anymore. And one of those neighborhoods they really fell in love with. And she said something to us that really stuck with me. She said, I am so glad that I found the neighborhood quiz and that I'm talking to you guys, because I feel so much better about this whole thing. I just felt like we were making this huge mistake for our kids, and I wasn't sleeping well, and my husband and I were arguing about it. She literally was making herself ill with the prospect of moving her kids to Salem, Oregon. Now, it is not guaranteed that they're going to end up living in Salem. The family is split apart now. He's working in Salem and she's back in Connecticut getting their house sold. And they are still considering a couple homes in the South Portland metro area because their schools are a little bit better over there. But they really are just a little bit better. Rather than 8s and 9s, they're all 9s. But I believe they're going to end up in Salem because, we're encouraging him, go rent a house up there for a week. Try on that 3-hour round trip commute each day, and see how you like that. That in combination with the homes that they really like here in Salem, up in Portland, cost $250,000 more. They can't really afford what they want up there. And so to live up there, he's going to have to live with a 3-hour daily commute and a junked out fixer that is half the size of what they want. Okay? Also, their girls can go to schools that are ranked 9s rather than 8s and 9s. I think they're going to end up in Salem. But even if they don't, at least the state didn't lose a prized recruit because of our schools. And they were going to. And these 2 examples, and another dozen I could bore you with, they illustrate what the neighborhood quiz can really do for employers. In that it paints Salem in just a positive enough light. It breaks through any negative impressions they might have, just enough that they come and visit and see for themselves what a great city this has become. And that's what I want to do for you. I want to create a branded version of this quiz that you can give to your candidates. It's not our quiz anymore, it's your quiz. Something that they can take, hey, here's a little something to teach you about the neighborhoods around Salem. Something that helps them form a positive impression of Salem right from the get-go, rather than trying to overcome a negative one in the final hour. Okay, what questions can I answer? Okay, so that is the pitch that I give to employers. Thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at kyle@thompsonburnham.com. Thank you.